Well, welcome back to West End Recovery Live. As West End retailers prepare to open their doors in less than a week, we'll be looking at the reopening of our district and the roadmap to encourage the return of our customers this spring. Joining us to discuss this, we have Luciano Magliocco, who's Associate Director of Marketing at New West End Company, Louise Errington-Thomas, who is Senior Brand and Marketing Manager at the Crown Estate, and Katie Thomas, Associate Director for Bond Street and Mayfair at New West End Company. Also joining us, we have Councillor Matthew Green, Cabinet Member for Business Licensing and Planning at Westminster City Council. He'll be giving an overview of reopening guidance and support for businesses from Westminster's perspective. We'll also be joined by Vernon Everett from Transport for London, who's Managing Director for Customers, Communication and Technology. He'll be talking about TfL's programme of activity and support to get commuters and customers back into the district. There will, of course, be an opportunity, as always, to ask your questions to our speakers today. So please do enter any questions you have in the chat box on your screen in the usual way. But first, let's cross over now to New West End Company's Chief Operating Officer, Dee Causey, for a quick update. Dee.
Hello there. Hello there and good afternoon, everybody. A couple of quick updates from me, if I may, before we hand over to our guest speakers. Firstly, in terms of security, you will be aware that we have gone live with our new security providers, FGH, from the 1st of April. Our new team amalgamates the daytime and nighttime security across the district. And you will see now that we also have a K9 unit in the day. Please do stop the team and say hello to them when you see them walking past. The whole team have a new high-vis uniform for maximum impact and the latest in body-worn cameras and data technology. We'll be increasing the team numbers for the first couple of weeks of reopening to support stores, so please do get in touch if you've got any issues. Our local policing teams will also be conducting high visibility patrols and some joint patrols with our NWEC security team. And you'll also see the reintroduction of the police podiums on Princes Street and Oxford Street. Just to reassure, there is no enhanced security threat. This is really just to ensure that our reopening in the West End is as smooth as possible. From a cleansing perspective, our enhanced security contract with Veolia also went live from the 1st of April, increasing our operatives from 9 to 16. For reopening, as before, you will see our street disinfecting and our sanitisation units. And at the moment, you will see the teams are completing a complete deep clean of the district when the nighttime temperatures allow us to, getting us ready for reopening. So a couple of asks from the team. Please do let us know if you've got any launch events that we can support you in terms of security and cleansing. And please do let us know of your reopening hours if you haven't already, so that we can support you there as much as we possibly can. A couple of last bits from me. In terms of insights, you'll be pleased to know that we will be relaunching our daily footfall from next Monday with a weekend roundup to follow each Monday morning. We will also be reinstating our monthly PwC reporting from the month of June, which will compile both April and May's data. If you are already signed into the programme, expect to hear from us over the next couple of weeks when we start collating the data. And if you're not signed in, now is the ideal time. We're doing one last round of sign-ups before we go live in June. So please do get in touch with either myself or the team. Now that's enough from me. I'm delighted to hand over to Councillor Matthew Green from Westminster City Council. He's been a tremendous support to us and local businesses over the past 12 months. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Dee. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the K9 unit in action. So 420,200 seconds. No, this is not a hit song from the musical Rent, but the amount of time left before I can go to the pub again. In less than 5 days, Westminster will begin to reopen. And as the Prime Minister says, we will do it cautiously, but more importantly, irreversibly. And irreversibly is the key part of the quotation. Monday's reopening needs to be permanent. We have all been here before. Twice I was counting down the seconds to reopening in June. I was counting them down again in December. And I fear that 420,200 seconds was close to how long businesses were actually allowed to stay open in December. We need to get off the lockdown merry-go-round once and for all. Businesses across Westminster have collectively spent millions on making their premises COVID secure. One-way systems, perspex barriers, hand sanitisers, queuing marshals. These have all been significant investments which will play an important role in our continuing fight against COVID-19. The contributions that these safe environments make to keeping people COVID-free needs to be recognised if we are to ensure that we can reopen for good. For Westminster City Council, safety obviously remains our #1 priority in terms of reopening our city, not least because it gives our residents, our office workers and our visitors the confidence they need to return to the West End. But some of the changes that have been made to our city to support social distancing have also helped to improve the shopper and visitor experience and will hopefully serve to both support footfall and dwell time. I was on Regent Street yesterday and impressed at the finished pavement extensions and biodiverse planters that add greenery to the street for the first time ever. For Westminster City Council, the scant silver linings of COVID have included 3 important things: our ability to work at pace, our willingness to test and trial, and our renewed relationship with partners. The Regent Street pavement extensions and the way in which we have worked with the Crown Estate are testament to that. And it has worked so well that the council is doing something similar on Oxford Street, extending the pavements where possible and introducing plants, green spaces and pocket parks to help improve the public realm. While these efforts may have started as a response to the coronavirus crisis, they are not only addressing the challenges of COVID, but also addressing the challenges we faced before the pandemic hit. The decreased footfall and dwell time on the streets of the West End, for example. So in terms of public realm in Westminster, we are building back better. That's not to say that planters and pocket parks will be enough to address the challenge of waning footfall. We're working with the New West End Company and other partners this summer to deliver an ambitious programme of on-street activation and animation, and we hope that this will help attract visitors back into Westminster and into the West End. Working with Westminster's cultural institutions, our Inside Out Festival in June will see parts of the city turned into an outdoor art gallery. We're also looking forward to the return of West End Live on September 18th and 19th. Also in September, we see the completion of the Park pedestrianised Strand, which, as part of the Strand Aldwych project, will deliver a new garden square for Westminster. And again, we're working with partners such as Somerset House to bring a spectacular crowd pleaser to this new public space. Hopefully by now you will all know about Marble Arch Hill. You may not know that it received planning permission last week, so work will soon start to deliver this temporary visitor attraction. Not only do we expect to attract 200,000 urban ramblers to scale the summit and enjoy the views of Hyde Park and the West End, but we also anticipate hundreds of thousands of non-climbing visitors to visit the area just to gaze at London's first ever alpine vista. Visit Britain estimates that there will be £61 billion of domestic tourism spend this year, almost doubling what was spent in 2020. It's important that London, and in particular the West End, grabs a share of this homegrown tourism income, not least to make up for the £7.4 billion that was not spent by overseas visitors in London last year. And the council wants to work with you as West End businesses on promoting the West End to day trippers and staycationers and ensure that we have a wide range of visitor attractions alongside the traditional shopping, dining and cultural offer. And as we aim to attract those who would usually spend their holidays in the Swiss Alps to Marble Arch, we also hope that those that can in Cannes this year will turn instead to Covent Garden or Soho. From next week, we will be restarting our successful continental style alfresco dining offer across Westminster. With hospitality businesses only able to open outside for the next 5 weeks, these interventions are even more crucial. In a city where space is at premium, we have issued nearly 1,000 pavement licenses to enable outdoor dining, which I think, and I may need to double check my figures here, is more than all the other London boroughs put together. We've been able to do this with a series of timed street closures and temporary pavement extensions across 60 streets. We've invested more than £2 million in security barriers and hostile vehicle mitigation measures, which have been provided to businesses at no cost. This has not only offered a lifeline to struggling hospitality businesses, but has also added to the vibrancy of our city and helped to create a buzz across our entertainment districts, which has appealed to residents and visitors alike. But unfortunately, we're not able to support all businesses. With 3,000 hospitality businesses across Westminster, we've clearly only been able to help a minority. Indeed, in addition to the lack of space available across Westminster, the costs and challenges associated with a reopening only on an outdoor basis mean that many businesses have informed us that they intend to delay their reopening until May. This will inevitably slow down the recovery. That's why the leader of the council wrote to the business secretary last month, asking the government to revisit the case for delaying the reopening of indoor hospitality until May. While I look forward to the pubs reopening on Monday, I'm saddened that as many as half of all hostelries will not be able to do so, and others, because of the restrictions, will only open at weekends. But I can't end this introduction with my pint glass being half empty. 50% of pubs opening is better than 0%, even if they are exposed to the Arctic winds of a British spring. And with hopefully 100% of so-called non-essential retail opening its doors again on Monday, we have a lot to look forward to. I'm grateful to NWEC for all their cooperation in supporting the reopening of our city, and I count the hours, the minutes and the seconds until we see the return of a safe but animated West End. And I hope that this irreversible reopening will herald a spring and summer of success for our businesses across the West End. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. The only question I have is, will we be seeing you do the can-can? Maybe we'll find out in the Q&A later on. Maybe that's a question for someone to put to you. But before we do that, let's cross over now and find out from Vernon Everett, the Managing Director for Customers, Communication and Technology at TfL, what their plans are.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm just going to whip you through some slides now, which really emphasise what we are doing to give confidence to the public that the public transport system is safe, clean and reliable, so that we can support the recovery that Matthew just outlined. So, Izzy, if we can go to the first slide, please. Now, point one that we will continue to emphasise, and there's a whole communications package behind each of these slides to push these points across. We continue to run a near full service to enable people to travel with confidence. We really must keep service levels up so that people are able to maintain social distance, and that's what we've been able to do since July, actually, last year. And just to give you an update on figures, we're running a pre the Easter break. We're running at about 30% of normal ridership on the London Underground and over 50% of normal ridership on the bus network. And around 1.7 million people are using the public transport system every day, which is about 43% of the normal ridership. And once people have experienced the network, we find that they're much more open to continuing to use it and to understanding how it can help in the recovery. So we're running as close to a full service as possible. It's vital to supporting the recovery. We're aiming to bring back really totemic and symbolic things like the Waterloo and City Line by the end of June to coincide if the government rollout or easing of restriction goes according to plan by the end of June. And we will re-establish the night tube, but not anytime soon. We will just need to see how that goes and keep that under constant review. But that will be kept in our sights. So a full service to enable people to travel with confidence. Next slide, please, Izzy. Just to give an illustration of demand and what we would like your help with and customers' help with as people start returning in greater numbers to the public transport network. This chart shows the current level of demand, which is the red line, and the current level of capacity that we have, and this is on our rail services, with 1 metre plus social distancing. And you'll see that there is plenty of spare capacity across the course of the day if we can spread that demand. So we do have and still have pinch points, particularly in the morning on the left-hand side of that chart, and we have an evening peak as well. But all the while there is social distancing, we don't have all of the former capacity that we did have, but we have plenty of spare capacity throughout the course of the day in those shaded areas, and this is a typical work day. So we need people to help us utilise that spare capacity. We also would like people to make use of all of the public realm improvements that have happened, particularly in Westminster, to enable greater walking and cycling for all or at least part of journeys, particularly in getting in and around the centre of the West End. And even today we've sent out an email to our 4.5 million database with our central West End walking map that demonstrates how people can easily get around on foot once they've actually arrived in the centre of town. So taking advantage of those quiet times across the network to ensure that people return, have a good experience, and will come back and confidence will grow more widely. Next slide, please, Izzy. So cleanliness, the transport network is cleaner than ever. Last year we rolled out an enhanced cleaning regime, and we use hospital grade cleaning substances and Gardicide antiviral disinfectant that kills viruses, kills bacteria, and provides long lasting protection. And all the time we're wiping down the touch points on our vehicles using those substances. And you will see they're out there now, and they'll be out there in force from the 12th onwards as well. You will see lots of cleaners around wiping down surfaces to demonstrate that in practice. We're using new technology. We have 200 ultraviolet light sanitizing devices, which are fitted across 110 escalators that are cleaning. They grab the handrails of escalators, and there are more than 1,000 hand sanitizing points all around the network, largely supplied with Dettol. The network really has never been cleaner, and we will continue to promote that. Next slide, please, Izzy. Ventilation is another key question we're asked about, and there is extensive air exchange and air change in buses and on the tubes and rail services and in stations. In fact, the natural piston effect of trains entering stations and everything naturally drives lots of fresh air around the system. But bus windows are being fitted with devices to ensure that they stay open to allow the fresh air in. Stickers are already on the windows encouraging customers to keep those windows open, and the regular ventilation of the air inside each tube and rail carriage means that every 2 to 3 minutes on average that air changes. So that's also aided, of course, by the opening and closing of doors as well. So air continuously flows through our buses, trains and stations, and we will communicate that to our customers. Next slide, please. People shouldn't just take our word for it. We commissioned Imperial College London to assess the effectiveness of the enhanced cleaning regime, and researchers have taken swab touch points from across stations, trains and buses, as well as taking hour-long air samples in ticket halls. That sampling started last September, continues on a monthly basis, and the Imperial College sampling continues to find 0 traces of coronavirus on the network. Next slide, please, Izzy. Another key element around confidence, which our customers are telling us, is the enforcement of the requirement to wear face coverings. And face coverings will continue to be promoted and enforced by our officers. And last summer, the government made that mandatory, of course, and we're working very closely with the British Transport Police, the Metropolitan Police, and our own enforcement officers to ensure that people who are not wearing a face covering without a legitimate exemption are challenged and, if necessary, prevented from using the network. There have been well over 150,000 interventions on that side of thing, and 2,000 fixed penalty notices as necessary, although that is a last resort. Normally when people are challenged, they get their mask out and they put it on. But that's absolutely central as well to maintaining confidence, and people will be given, people will see the police in evidence and our officers in evidence around the network in a welcoming way to ensure that people play by the rules. Next slide, please, Izzy. Our fares and ticketing system is really, really flexible. So people ask about part-time season tickets and how people can use those and so on. In London, we've had them on Transport for London's network. Most people use pay-as-you-go and only pay for the journeys that they undertake. So over 75% of our customers use pay-as-you-go and just tap their contactless payment card or tap their Oyster card, and don't need to think about buying a travel card, because we'll cap all-day travel at the daily rate automatically. We'll always find people the cheapest fares. And on contactless, there is a weekly cap as well, and that will be introduced on Oyster in the early part of this summer as well, which caps you at the weekly season ticket rate if you happen to hit those numbers of that number of journeys. We have peak and off-peak fares, and travel into Zone 1 in the evening, even in the evening peak times, is charged at an off-peak rate, and we'll continue to promote that. And of course, children under 11 travel free on all the network, and they travel at a heavily discounted price. And under 16s travel free on the bus network and a heavily discounted price on the tube network and our other rail networks. So our ticketing system is flexible. We know that national rail services are also looking at ways in which they can make their fares and ticketing more flexible as well, to meet not only the needs of people coming into shop or to come into one of the pubs or whatever, but also to work in a more flexible way. Next slide, please, Izzy. There is a whole campaign of communication around all of this. We have been extensively on radio and TV and via our email channels and on social media, reaching out to Londoners to engage on all of these messages. And as I mentioned, even this morning, we sent a message from our Commissioner of Transport on all of the safety improvements that have been made across the network to 4.5 million registered customers. Those will continue to emphasise the safety, cleanliness, the well-controlled nature, the welcoming but well-controlled nature of the public transport network. Between April and May, it's going to be a "We're ready when you are, London" disposition, and we will help remind people about all of the things that are reopening in central London and the West End over this period, and assuming that that social distancing rules are relaxed in some way in June, coinciding with the government's review of all of this, we can go into a full-scale rediscover all the good things that you've missed about London campaign in collaboration with NWEC and with many others, the Association of Leading Visitor Attractions and many more. And we're working very, very closely with businesses to help us amplify those messages. I think that's it, Martin. But the main thing I just wanted to emphasise is that we understand how important public transport and active travel is to the recovery. And we will continue to do what our customers really want us to do, which is to provide that reassurance on the safety, cleanliness, orderliness and frequency and reliability of the public transport system and the active travel facilities that are now available. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Vernon, and good to hear all that information there. Just a reminder, we want to hear your questions. You can put them, as always, just by clicking on the question mark icon on your window and typing your question in there. So do please put them in. We've got some already, but we want more. Let's cross over now and speak to Luciana, Louise and Katie. Over to you.
Thank you, Martin. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Like all of you, I'm sure we are incredibly excited for next week's eagerly anticipated reopening and welcoming our Londoners and customers, and indeed your staff, back into the district. We have been working really hard behind the scenes with you, our members, directly with our partners and key London stakeholders to build out a really compelling marketing strategy aimed at driving the West End's recovery in the immediate term and indeed over the next 12 to 18 months. Over the next 10 minutes, I'll be doing a little bit of a double act with my colleague Katie Thomas, who many of you know, as we bring you through our district-wide and street-specific direction of travel before then handing it over to Louise to discuss Regent Street's plans. Over to you, Katie.
Thanks, Luciana. Yeah, so there's a huge question around international travel and what will be the customer demand as we emerge from this pandemic, and how we maximise visitors this year and then grow back our overseas visitors next year and return to a more buoyant recovery in 2022 and 23. We've also lost a large proportion of the workforce customers, and so it's super important for us to understand who the audience is likely to be and when they might return, so that we can target them more effectively. We've worked with not just our new West End Company Insights team, but also with leading tourism bodies to gain a much better insight into who these customers are going to be. And it's clear that there's a pent-up demand for experience. Shopping, dining and meeting up with others are the top of the most wanted list in all the surveys that were carried out. So from April the 12th, we'll be looking at our local and domestic London audience for our footfall, and this is likely to be the younger 18 to 34s who will venture back first. Also the first to start coming back to the offices, even though this is unlikely to drive a full return to a 5-day week initially, and certainly not in the foreseeable future. But certainly the youth and the younger audience is desperate to come back in, and that's where the recovery will be first. As Matthew pointed out, there's a key opportunity among the for staycations and for city break audience, with half of the UK consumers planning to take a holiday but not likely to travel abroad, and this could be as much as many as 9 million displaced holidays this year, and we're looking to attract and convert a proportion of those to have their break in London and take a city break rather than a country or coastal break. Luciana will touch on more of that as our work with the London Recovery Tourism Board. For international travel, it's still very unclear, and we know from the experience of last year there's no immediate bounce back from reopening. But from the data we've acquired, there was some demand for travel amongst the younger audience. But really, until the International Travel Task Force report back on the 12th of April, we don't know what the changes and restrictions may be in place, which will obviously have a bearing on that. And we'll start turning up our international marketing later this year, but we're unlikely to see a true recovery of international visitors until probably the end of certainly the end of this year, but more likely into 2022. Next slide, Izzy.
Great. So as Katie has nicely summarised, the focus that you'll see come through in our marketing approach is very much Londoners and domestic this side of the year, and then turning our attention to European and international customers when they can return, subject to the successful rollout of the vaccination, which we're quietly confident about, as I'm sure you all are, or indeed hope it will be very successful as we welcome customers back. So how are we going to attract these target audience segments back? Next slide, please, Izzy. We've formulated a marketing approach that will focus on 4 key pillars of activity, and each of these pillars of activity are very much available for your brands to get involved in. So whether you work in the hospitality sector, in the retail sector, this is all at your disposal. So please do get involved in our annual calendar of activity. In terms of what does that look like, it's very much a London-wide recovery campaign that will stretch across the next 12 months. An owned seasonal calendar of district animation, a suite of enhanced customer services, and then our always on promotional platforms, which hopefully many of you are familiar with and currently engaging in. From a London recovery perspective, next slide please, Izzy. This really is all about driving back demand. So as part of our London recovery tourism efforts, we're taking very much an industry-wide approach on how we unlock and spend both private and public sector funding to really boost London's visitor economy. We'll be working closely with the GLA, London and Partners, the Great Campaign and other major travel and tourism operators to run a national advertising campaign. So it's not something we've done much of in the past, but of course there's a strong demand for this given where we are. The campaign, as Katie mentioned, will be very much aimed at attracting those displaced holiday makers to book domestic day trips, but also overnight stays and indeed extended city breaks into the capital. We'll work on your members' behalf to ensure that the West End district is really heavily featured across the Let's Do London advertising campaign, which actually launches later this week. I'm not sure if any of you have seen the Let's Do London campaign, but we will be circulating a toolkit so that you can use this on your respective promotional and digital channels.
Thanks, Luciana. So, as you know, our shared vision for the next 2 and 5 years is to make the West End's International Centre the most diverse, sustainable, inspiring place to visit and do business. And now more than ever, city centres are reimagining themselves, aligning to what visitors want from the destination and how customers of tomorrow will want to shop. It's really important that we entertain, surprise and delight the visitors back into the West End and increase their dwell time and ultimately their loyalty to shop with us. We plan to animate the district with a unique activations and pop-up innovations, thanks Izzy, and enhance the visitors' experience, drive footfall and basically generate this sort of positive coverage and social media engagement, ultimately to shape the visitors' perception of the West End. And we're going to take you through what some of those animations look like.
So kicking off our animation strategy will be our West End Welcomes You Back campaigns, of which there will be one for Oxford Street and also for also for Bond Street. From an Oxford Street perspective, we'll be launching our Press Play on Oxford Street campaign, and this really kind of draws into the fact that our district and your brands have essentially been forced on to pause mode for the last 12 months, but also our customers' lives have been forced into pause mode. So this campaign is really about celebrating the reawakening of life and the West End and really resuming life as we used to know and love. It's very much centred around the experience of Oxford Street and the experience to be had in store and also in the alfresco dining outlets. We've partnered with Spotify, given they are a globally, internationally leading audio partner, to curate a series of uplifting and euphoric playlists, which customers can scan and download across the district to really enhance their on-street experience. In terms of the promotion of this campaign, We'll be running a fully integrated press office. I believe we have landed a piece in the Evening Standard as of today. We'll also be running a digital and social media campaign to promote all of the incredible activity that you'll be hosting in your businesses. So if you haven't already been taking part in this, and please do get in touch with the marketing team. We'd love you to take some of the QR codes. We'd ask that you play upbeat music in store and continue to send through spring content so you can be heavily featured in this positive news story campaign.
Yes, and on Bond Street, we're reopening. We've teamed up with the National Trust and their Blossom Watch campaign. It's all around natural beauty and well-being, and we'll be installing a little avenue of apple blossom trees on Bond Street, both at the Allies statue and at the town square. And we hope we'll bring a little bit of joy to the street, and visitors will be able to highlight and support the National Trust's Plant a Tree campaign, which allows visitors to donate £5 to plant a tree, and the National Trust is aiming to plant 20 million trees by 2030. So it's a new partnership with the National Trust, very sort of Instagram led. We're working with them and with the National Trust campaign itself, and with the influencers to promote the blossom trees on Bond Street throughout this sort of social and digital campaign. So very pretty and very much led by Instagram and people taking pictures and sharing, as well as donating to the tree campaign. Thank you. So a summer of celebration as we come into June. For this, as we come through June, we're going to, following the success of the first Mayfair Sculpture Trail in partnership with Mayfair Art Weekend, which we launched in October last year during the lockdown, we're really excited to bring this back in June, and visitors can expect to see a host of artworks and sculptures and pop-ups right across Bond Street and streets surrounding, and they can follow the trail and learn more about the art and the artists, as well as the galleries in Mayfair, through the Smartify app, which even in lockdown last year, we had a huge amount of following for this and huge amount of Instagram and sharing of pictures, even though it was we still were in a sort of partial lockdown. So we're really excited to bring this back. We've already had lots of interest from artists about what we're going to put, and the trail will all be live on Smartify.
On Oxford Street, we will be continuing our audio theme and our experiential theme, and we will be launching our Sounds of Summer Festival campaign. And this really is to celebrate the hopefully official end of lockdown and create a really vibrant, exciting and inspiring social space for Londoners and domestic visitors to visit. It'll be full of surprise and delight moments, pop-up gigs, live performances, in-store performances, to give people a festive kick. And also just to make it a really fun, desirable destination. I think we've all been craving social spaces and social experiences, and we feel that Oxford Street is really well placed to lead this theme. In terms of promotional elements, again, we will extend our music partnership to reach that key audience. We'll have a press office, digital and social media campaign, and details on how you can get involved in this will be shared in May as we continue to scope out the details of this. Next slide, please, Izzy. September, as you all know, is a hugely important month for retail, but also for hospitality, and it's very much the fashion month. For this year, Oxford Street wants to do Fashion Month with a little bit of a twist, and we really want to shine the light on our sustainable credentials. Our aim is to communicate and drive credibility around our commitment to becoming a more sustainable district. We really want to work with your businesses to kind of promote what you're doing in this field. and on how we can show the customer we are a more conscious destination in both our operations but also our offering. And what this looks like is kind of a week-long program of, sustainable collections, sustainable windows, in conversation with, upcycling workshops. And so to really hang our hat on this, we need the whole street to get involved in some way. And we'll come back to you in early June to discuss how you can get involved. But really looking forward to really owning this space, because it's not no destination really owns it at the moment, and Oxford Street very much wants to and build on that as a London calendar event.
Thank you. So September's really busy, and I'm aware of time. So I think many of you know about the Art in Mayfair. It's a really great collaboration we have with the Royal Academy of Art, all around the summer exhibition, which is why it's moved into September this year and not June, because the RA has moved the summer exhibition. It's a fantastic opportunity for us to showcase the art heritage of our destination area, and also for brands to showcase their own art heritage. There's a lot going on around in September, as Matthew also mentioned, about the summer exhibition, the Inside Out Festival, Art of London, and of course Freeze happens in October. So it's a fantastic time for us to really showcase, and we have a whole deck on Art in Mayfair, which I've sent out to most of you, but if you haven't had it, I'd love to send that to you again so that you can fully get up to speed of what that includes. But it will certainly include the art flags from a Royal Academician, a launch party, Paint the Town launch party, pop-ups, art on the street again. So really good time. So I'm not going to go over that one because there's lots to say on it, but I will send the deck. We've also teamed up with the Prince's Trust and the Women Supporting Women initiative, which launched last year. Bond Street's going to take part in this through the Brilliant Breakfast, which was founded by Anushka Dakis MBE, and it's going to take place during the week of the 11th to the 17th of October, and it's all about raising money for the Prince's Trust campaign to help young women find their way and earn and learn for skills for life. So it's a fantastic campaign and really attracts a lot of, again, social media and really good initiatives around women supporting women. So that will be in October. Next slide.
And then finally, to finish our animation calendar will be Christmas. So very much the holy grail of what we do and what we are synonymous for. I'm delighted to announce, and it's only a sneak preview here on the bottom left-hand corner, but Oxford Street will be launching a brand new immersive Christmas light scheme this year, which we feel will have a really big social media pull, and can just imagine lots of people flocking to the street to get their selfie underneath our three-dimensional and very strong coverage lighting scheme. I will share this with everyone as a follow-up deck. Bond Street will also see the return of its beautiful Christmas tree, and plans on Christmas will be shared closer to the time. Next slide, Izzy.
Yes, in line with everything we're doing, we think is also really important for us to offer this very 5-star London welcome, and we've taken a look at how we do that and what we need to offer to ensure that the destination is accessible and convenient and is really seen as a top world leading destination. So we have identified a number of a sort of basket of things that we were looking at introducing. Some of them will come more quickly than others. I mean, we've been very much looking at the shop and ship model service with the loss of our VAT. We don't really know how that's going to shape out yet and how essential that will be, but it's one of a whole raft of different services we are looking at to bring to the West End. So
And we're very conscious of time, so we're going to, before handing over to Louise at Regent Street, just another reminder that all of our destination websites, social media channels, and indeed our West End loyalty programme is available to your businesses, and see it as an extension to your own promotional platforms. These are direct to market tools to get your content out in market. Thank you very much, and apologies for going over. Over to you, Louise.
Thanks very much, Luciana. So likewise, we'll be working really closely with our West End partners on the rebuilding of our destination. One of the things we did want to highlight is over lockdown, we've had a number of new brands joining us on Regent Street, and we're really excited to welcome the likes of Bally and Free People and Colourful Standard, and some really exciting new pop-ups as well, which we think will be a really great addition to Regent Street and a new reason to visit after the 12th of April. Next slide, please. So we've also been, in addition to the research that Luciana and Katie went through, we did some specific research for Regent Street to understand perceptions, barriers and drivers to Regent Street. And what was positive was that 1 in 10 Londoners plan to return within 3 months. And again, it's higher within that younger audience. There are still concerns such as crowds and the transport that was touched on earlier, but we know that we need to constantly reassure within our communications. But what was reassuring was that actually 30% don't have any concerns. So you can see that there is that pent up demand as well. And similarly, the main reasons to return are around going for a meal and the cultural offering we have in the West End. So again, we know what we need to dial up in our communications. Next slide, please. So our key objectives really are to drive footfall back to the West End and to Regent Street and to support all of the brands. We know we need to enliven the destination and create those new reasons to visit, and to evolve the positioning as well, so that we're really talking to those Londoners and the office workers so that they can understand what's on offer and why they should visit. So we'll be targeting a younger audience than before, who have really got that interest in dining, cultural offering and well-being that we know we have to offer them here. But as Luciana and Katie mentioned, there's the importance of the day trippers and overnight domestic visitors. So we're working with our West End partners and London partners and the London Rebuild efforts to make sure that we're part of all of those national campaigns as well. Next slide, please. So right now, as we gear up to reopening, we've been using all of our channels to really remind people why they should visit, all the great things that they can't find on their local high street, that award-winning customer service, the amazing restaurants and galleries and flagship stores. And we've been partnering with a young poet called Teresa Lola, who created a bespoke poem for us, which is really a love letter to Regent Street and St James. Talking about all the amazing experiences that you can find in the West End. So we've been heavily promoting that across all of our channels and running paid for media to support that. Next slide, please. As we move into April and the 12th, which we're all really excited for, we'll be using our own channels to provide that reassurance, to highlight everything that is open and let people know why now is a perfect time to visit. This will also be supported by a PR campaign, particularly targeting those London titles, and that'll be highlighting the public realm improvements and what people can really expect before they come to visit, alongside all the great new reasons to visit, particularly that dining, the outdoor terrace, which we know will be such a key driver for people coming back, and that we have such an amazing offering on Regent Street. Next slide, please. And as Councillor Green said, one of the most tangible changes when visitors do come back is how we've worked in partnership with Westminster City Council to transform Regent Street. We've got enhanced public realm, additional paving space, the reduction of 4 lanes down to 2 traffic, and new cycle lanes and cycle parking to encourage that active travel. And it's just such a lovely space now with the trees and over 300 planters. And we'll be working with artists such as Claire Luxton to further enhance that and introduce more public art into the public realm. And we'll be releasing some additional assets, video and imagery in the coming weeks, just as the final seating takes place. And we know that would be a great way to encourage people to spend longer on the street and dwell and really enjoy the space in a way that they weren't able to previously. Next slide, please. So on public art, we know that that's a key driver for visitors, and it's one of the things that I think people have really missed during lockdown, with the art galleries and museums being closed. So we've been partnering with a number of artists and art agencies to bring public art into the public realm, to enhance our spaces and create new reasons to visit. So we've got a couple of examples here with some of the artists we've been working with, but we think it's a really great enhancement to our destinations, and something we'll be doing more of in the coming weeks and months. Next slide, please. So as we move into May, that's when we'll really be ramping up our Rebuild campaign, which will be a video-led campaign supporting all of our customers across the street, to really highlight the breadth of offer we have on Regent Street, and to bring that sense of excitement and those unique experiences to life. It will be very much a paid-for media campaign at its heart, working with London-centric titles, radio and digital channels, which we know perform so well for us. So we'll be using channels such as social media, geo-targeted display and YouTube bumpers to really get those key messages across, so that people can really be inspired to come and visit Regent Street as we head into those summer months, supported by the wider West End and London-wide campaigns. We'll obviously be sharing more details as we go through, but that's just a little whistle-stop tour of what we're doing over the coming months. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Louise. We have had a jam-packed session and we have some questions to go through, but just to remind you that if you've missed anything and you want to catch up from the beginning, we will be posting all of this session onto our YouTube channel and our LinkedIn page, so you'll be able to see it all there. But let's have a look at some of the questions which have come in and see if we can address them. Let's go to our canning councillor, Matthew Green. You'll have to have watched earlier to understand what I'm talking about there. Somebody wants to know whether we have a start date for the building of the Hill by Marble Arch.
Well, you will actually see some of the preparatory work starting already this week. So the area will be fenced off, and we'll be bringing in the porter cabins. But the actual construction on the hill will probably not start until the end of April, beginning of May. But hopefully you'll see some changes start to be introduced around Marble Arch as early as this week.
Thank you for that, Matthew, and thanks for keeping it brief. Let's go to a question here from Laura. What are the new dates for the Inside Out Festival in June? I'm not sure whether we covered that and who would be best placed to expand on that question and the answer to it. Perhaps Luciana, can you help us with that?
I might flick that one over to Councillor Green. I think he's a better idea. Apologies.
Sure.
So obviously, for Inside Out, we're working with a number of partners, and it's as well as our own interventions. It's an overarching campaign. So as you heard from Luciana there, the Mayfair Sculpture Trail, which we'll also want to brand as part of Inside Out, will be starting in June. But we're mainly working with our cultural institutions. They're not open yet. They're not opening until May the 17th. So once they're up and running, we'll be coming to them and looking at dates for bringing the art outside into the public realm, and that's likely to be in the July-August period. As you know, we had some very exciting light installations planned for Inside Out when we were going to implement it last year, and obviously we want to do those in a period where light installations work. So we'll be running the Inside Out programme at least until October, after the clocks have gone back, so that we can make the most use of the night time for these light installations.
Thank you again. This might be another question for you, Matthew. It's from Jose Ferreira. asking, can you please let us know what your recommendation is regarding trading hours when we reopen the stores? It might be also a question for Luciana or one of the others, but do you want to start off with that, whether you have any kind of recommendation?
Unless in Westminster, unless there are conditions on your planning application or obviously your license, it is not restrictive with the exception of Sunday trading in terms of the hours that you are able to trade. Probably from a New West End company point of view, they can give you some advice, but I certainly know that in December before Christmas, in those few weeks that businesses were allowed to reopen again, that again it's about consumer confidence, and I think that there are some people who are going to be nervous coming back into the West End, into the centre of London. So, and it links in to what we were being shown by TfL in terms of those hours where there is capacity on the network. So I do think that some shoppers are likely to appreciate an early start or the ability to shop later when there are fewer people about. But New West End Company may have some specific advice for you on that.
Yes, we have been collating opening hours over the last few weeks from a Regent Street, Bond Street and Oxford Street perspective. At the moment, it looks like the majority of brands are going towards the 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. opening hour times. However, I think it's a little bit of a let's go and review. It's a very fluid situation. But as Councillor Green has pointed out, there are no restrictions on the opening hours for reopening.
Yeah, and I also want to add to that, brands that I've been speaking to also that perhaps didn't open on a Sunday before are looking at opening on Sunday, and I think that's very much, again, it's a little bit suck it and see, but I think certainly people are looking more at their opening hours for the Sunday. But very, very positive response back, getting back to pre-COVID opening hours.
Question here for you on the Let's Do London campaign. The question is, what assets will they be using? Is it just social channel campaign or broadcast radio advertising too? Who wants to jump in on that?
I can do so, as we discussed this yesterday, so very timely indeed. What we've noticed is, particularly during the lockdown in the last 12 months, is that customers have really shifted towards consuming much more digital communications. And so to begin with, it will be very digitally led through paid social advertising, online social advertising, SEO. However, we would look to do more of a TV campaign if budget allows in the summer. However, I would caveat that obviously television advertising is much more costly than social, and we can be really, really targeted with social. So our recommendation is to go for a digital first approach and target those audiences that we know can and want to come into London and the West End.
Okay, I'd like to bring in Vernon here. I'm not sure this is directly for you, Vernon, but I'm going to put it to you first. So the question is are you looking at doing any traffic-free events on Regent Street again this year? And the reason I'm putting it to you is obviously you're in charge of where traffic goes and the Transport for London. Is there a plan to have pedestrianisation again over large parts of the city? And that's why this question might be best directed at you.
I'll just have to defer to Councillor Green, I think, probably on what might be happening locally. I mean, just generally on traffic, of course, what we're desperate to avoid is a car-led recovery. And that's why and it's great to see in all the material, the promotion of all of the walking and cycling facilities that are going to be going on. But I'm sorry, Martin, I don't know the specific plans in the Westminster area on car-free days.
Not a problem. Matthew, do you have anything to add to that? So
we haven't had any requests so far, but the point of reducing the lanes on Regent Street from 4 to 2, expanding the pavements there, also expanding the pavements on Oxford Street, I would imagine that we'd see fewer car-free events from now on, because obviously we have reduced we have given cyclists and pedestrians priority in that area. But if any requests do come through, we'll look at them through that prism.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Just to add to that, we have obviously in the past had summer streets. We aren't planning to bring that back this summer, just with the uncertainty with COVID. And as Councillor Green says, we've got this lovely new space with enhanced public realms. So we want to look at how do we work with Westminster to use that space rather than having those car-free days as we have at the moment.
Good. How long will the Bond Street blossom trees be on the street for? Who wants to give an answer to that?
I can give you an answer to that, Martin. It'll run through from the middle of April to about the middle of May. So about 4 weeks we will have them there. Okay. Not field trees, I have to say. Sustainable, but not real.
But not real. Okay. Yeah. One last question here. You mentioned the stores added to Regent Street, but what about the stores we've lost? What is the plan short and long term for empty units? A really important question there. I don't know who's best placed to answer that. Katie, do you want to jump in with your views about what should happen and what could happen?
I will. I'll pass it on to Luciana as well, because actually Oxford Street has seen more of that, and there is this very, very good programme that we're working on to tackle that with Westminster.
Yeah, so thanks, Katie. We are launching a pop-up programme where we'll be looking at inviting up-and-coming brands to take up residency throughout the West End district on short-term basis. This will obviously be dependent on how collaboratively we can work with our landlords, but there is certainly provision from a finance perspective and a resource perspective to address the empty voids and the growing number of voids in the West End. I think we are very confident with private funding that we anticipate to come to the West End over the next few years, that this is a really transformational time, and actually it's a great period for us to attract new occupiers to the district as we shift from traditional retail to more experiential and cultural, a more experiential offering. So it's a wait and see, but we've got big plans coming.
And Martin, if I could just come in on that, obviously the council's doing a lot of work with landowners and with business improvement districts. We've started our own pop-up support programme, and initially we're trialling that in the Holbert area, but we'll be working with emerging artists to take over empty units. And turn them into artistic spaces, a little bit similar to what the Crown was doing on Regent Street. And we have grants available of £2,500 or £5,000 for fit out there. So that application process is already available for artists who want to have space in that Holbert area. We will be looking to bring some pop-up activation into the NWEC area too. For those who've heard me on these Recovery Lives before, we've set up our new West End investment service, and that will be helping to smooth the path for domestic and international investors, including new retail occupiers that want to take over those empty spaces. I think it is we have to look at this current crisis as an opportunity for those new experiential occupiers that Luciana was referring to, also with New West End Company and a number of key West End landowners. We're working with London and partners on how to attract international occupiers. We have plans already for virtual trade visits to the Far East and to the US to bring in some new occupiers into the West End. So it's for the City Council, it's something that we haven't had to attract investment before, and this is new for us, but we're rolling up our sleeves and we're really getting involved.
Good to hear, and that artistic plan sounds like a really good one. I can't wait to see it. Thank you to all our speakers for joining us today, and thank you to joining us and asking your questions. For our next West End Recovery Live session, we'll be focusing on Oxford Street with the launch of our latest report into the investment and the development of upcoming initiatives on the nation's high street. Keep your eyes peeled for your invitation in the coming weeks. For now, goodbye.